20 years ago, I tore out my organic monoculture apple orchard and replanted a permaculture-inspired orchard to see if we could produce fruit beyond organically while attracting more wildlife. In this video, I'll show you the whole story of how I turned a boring organic apple orchard into a vibrant diversity of fruit, vegetables, and flowers, and how I used nature to assist in making it easier, healthier, and more fun. 30 years ago, we bought a conventionally farmed monoculture apple orchard, converted it to organic. In the first year, it was just apples and full of dandelion. We soon introduced some sheep in the orchard, kept bees, and raised some birds, and added a few nest boxes. It was at least a start towards diversity. We were plagued by one pest, the tent caterpillar. It would decimate the leaves every year and cause a peak amount of damage every 3 years. One of those peak years, I was humbled and ended up asking the caterpillar, "Why are you causing so much damage?" It answered, "You've created a buffet." I decided we needed to try something different. I had been teaching about permaculture and frankly was ashamed of the old organic orchard, which was too simple and not a functioning ecosystem. I wanted to produce more variety of foods and also attract more wildlife, all inspired by permaculture design. Fast forward to 2006, we tore out most of the organic orchard. I began by designing an orchard with tree diversity right from the start. The goal was to use a repeating pattern of 3 trees, which I originally called the NAP system. N symbolized nitrogen-fixing tree, A was for apple, and P for pear or plum. It's now evolved into trios because we can have fruit or nuts in the mix, not just fruit, and it can be adapted to all areas, not just ours. A second big change was using the grocery store concept, where you walk down an aisle and you pick fruit from both sides. Both rows will be ripe in the same 10-day window. So we simply would plant trees in a row according to when the fruit are ripe. The grocery store concept really just borrowed the logical idea of all ripe at once from the monoculture orchard, but with a big diversity twist. The third change was using vertical trios, so we could maximize the space. Now, instead of apple trees and grass, we would have trios of diverse trees, a diversity of fruiting shrubs beneath them, and perennial vegetables, herbs, and flowers beneath the trees. We've since added vines of grape and kiwi to climb up the nitrogen-fixing trees to give us fruit on each of the trio trees, since in our climate, most of our nitrogen-fixing trees don't provide edible fruit. In 2007, we began to replant in a permaculture-inspired planting design. Over the next 3 years, we did 1 block at a time. When it was replanted and growing, I wasn't sure it would work, so I kept everything private and did not show any part of the orchard. Before being able to teach anyone, I had to be convinced that the idea worked. For the first 3 years, we had great success growing a variety of vegetables instead of the perennial vegetables planned. I learned, don't plant 1,200 row feet of zucchini unless you have a huge market for zucchini. After a couple of cycles of our worst previous pest, the tent caterpillars, and not seeing their damage or population explosion, I was encouraged by the results and began to make the orchard public again. The only thing left to do was what I was most excited about, adding wildlife habitat. We used the branches pruned off the trees to create extensive brush piles on the perimeter of the orchard. We added another 150 nest boxes for birds, bumblebees, and wasps. We added water features and left one block unpruned to test a new technique and to see if it's more attractive to wildlife. 5 years after planting, as we were preparing for our first full crop, we got hit with a severe spring frost of -8 Celsius that killed all the blossoms and ruined our crop. As luck would have it, it was also the year we got our worst hailstorm in 30 years. But with no crop to ruin, it was the best year to get it. Luckily, there's always next year. And in 2013, we had our first big crop. It was around this time when I first noticed how the different pieces of the ecosystem were slowly starting to come together, as if nature knew what's best all along. Since we don't use pesticides, different species of birds returned, and we're using the now nearly 300 nest boxes, along with bees and wasps. Other beneficial insects were feeding in the flowers and nesting in the plant remains. The tree diversity, combined with fruits and perennial plants below, were blooming, fruiting, and attracting wildlife. And this recreated ecosystem eliminated the former caterpillar problem that existed in the monoculture organic apple orchard. It was no longer a buffet for caterpillars. All was not rosy, however. Diversity of habitats brings diversity of plants, animals, including predators. We lost 50 turkeys in one night to a raccoon because I forgot to turn on the electric fence. Equipment would break down at critical times, which is part of farming, but it makes for some sad days. The dandelion, which had once littered the grassy areas, were now a thing of the past. Just like the wildlife diversity, the plant diversity contributed to restoring soil life, making it healthy. Just like the wildlife and plant diversity, people began to be attracted to the permaculture orchard. The orchard's biggest uncertainty became the biggest attraction. Content creators, TV, newspaper, and radio began to reach out to find out more about this strange fringe orchard. The uncertainty about whether the orchard would function like an ecosystem blossomed into its greatest crop. Not the fruit, herbs, flowers, and animals raised. No, the greatest crop had become people. And the information the orchard could now provide to people like you. I want to share this with you so that you can have your very own permaculture planting. Whether you already have a piece of land or even a yard and dream of starting an orchard one day, that's why I created my Permaculture Orchard Masterclass, to help you turn your dream into a reality. I've put everything I've learned over the last 30 years into an easy and fun online masterclass consisting of 11 different courses that will ultimately save you time and money, all while allowing you to learn at your own pace and be surrounded by other like-minded individuals who have already begun their own permaculture journey. I'm so confident in that, I want to offer the first 10 people $250 off by using code POP250 at checkout. So head on over to permaculture.study or click the link in the description to start your journey with us today. In the last 15 years, the orchard has matured. The workload has decreased, allowing me to focus more on education and to continue to learn lessons that each new season brings. Springtime is a season of renewal. The flowers, the return of the birds and insects. It's the busiest work season, it's the green season. Spring is often associated with the birds and the bees. We had been raising honeybees for many years. Now, with the crop diversity and a tremendous long sequence of blooms from the trees, shrubs, and flowers, native bees of all kinds have become well-established residents. That's when I realized that we no longer needed honeybees. They were in fact causing overpollination of the tree crops, causing branches and whole trees to break under the loads of fruit. Honeybees are not native to North America and actually compete with native bees for available flowers. Once a diversity of crops are established, there is no need for honeybees for pollination. I enjoyed having honey, but I no longer want to see honeybees in the permaculture orchard. As for the bird part of birds and bees, we now have at least 30 species of birds nesting. Of the birds using the nest boxes, tree swallows are the most common, but we also attract several pair of house wren, eastern bluebirds, white-breasted nuthatch, house sparrows, starling, and black-capped chickadee, which are year-round residents, even coming to eat out of our hand.
That's so cool.
Birds are not the only ones using the nest boxes. We also get eastern chipmunk, red squirrel, bumblebees, and my favorite orchard predator, wasps. As far as the trees, shrubs, brush piles, and tall grass, we get song sparrows, chipping sparrows, vesper sparrows, robin, crow, wild turkey, and more. Considering how we are surrounded by grain crop fields and a sand and gravel operation, the orchard is the magnet for these species. Summer is a relaxed season. Time to enjoy the orchard, less work. It's harvest season for small fruit. It's also the best time to visit other projects before the busy fall harvest season. Realize that it's not all about the fruit. It's the journey, the memories created with family and friends. Fall is harvest season. The weather is cooling off. You can now see all your years of hard work pay off. Fruit trees are not like vegetables. It takes years, and every year you harvest based a lot on how well you did the work last year. Tasting a fruit for the first time from a tree you planted, nurtured for years, and watched grow, flower, and finally fruit is an experience well worth the wait. With winter now settling in and the permaculture orchard now snow-covered, this was the perfect time to reflect on the last 20 years. It was incredibly rewarding to realize all the people who now view orchards as making more sense as a polyculture of mixed species rather than a monoculture, and knowing all the wildlife that will benefit from these new permaculture orchards. Whether it was a quick drink of water or completing its whole life cycle in the permaculture orchard, it just goes to show how if you take a step toward nature, nature will take 10 steps toward you, and you can have a positive impact on the land, wildlife, and people.